the record. So let's make a formal introduction for our listener. Good afternoon, Markus. My name is Claudio. I'm calling you from Washington, D.C., from the studios in Fairfax City. We are very humble, grateful that Markus Reuter accepted our invitation to a show. Markus, welcome to the show, man.
Welcome. Thank you.
No problem. So, Markus, so with everything that is going on in the world with the pandemic and inability to go outside, some people want to take the vaccine, some people don't believe in the vaccine. You cannot tour like many musicians. How are you doing? And how's your family, how your sanity?
Good question. It's been such a long time that I don't even see it as one phase, right? There are several phases within what we now call the pandemic. At the beginning, like people were thinking that it wouldn't get to where it is a pandemic, but to me it was pretty obvious. Like even in January, when I think it was January when I first heard about virus in China, and we were Stickman, my band Stickman, we were going on tour in China and Japan and Hong Kong, and so then I already knew, okay, there's going to be problems. The Chinese part was canceled right away. And we went over to Japan, and just like the day before the first concert in Japan, we heard, okay, tomorrow, which was a Friday, is going to be the only show you can play because on Saturday they start the lockdown, right? And so at that point, I kind of like knew, okay, because I'm also, I don't know, I'm sort of like a realist, I would say. And once you realize that something like this is happening and it's going out, it's spreading out into the world, then there's no stopping. And this was clear to me from the very beginning. And I stayed a few more days in Tokyo and actually recorded a really beautiful album with Gary Husband there, because we had a few days before our flight went, right? So we went to a studio, recorded there. But anyway, so when I got to the airport, Narita Airport, which is a huge airport, and it was basically empty. And I wasn't shocked because, as I said, I was very realistic. I got there, but it was still such a surprise to see that the Japanese people, they had already understood, and the lockdown was serious there. Then when I got to Germany, I can't remember, I think I flew over Helsinki. Can't remember now how the state in Helsinki was, but then I got back to Germany and it was like nothing had happened, like everybody was the same. And at that point, I knew, okay, so this is definitely going to spread. This is definitely already everywhere, and it turned out that was actually true. And you could see it. I mean, maybe I'm not a specialist, but I'm going to say it anyway. You could see that in the places where there were a lot of businessmen or large industries, you had the like the problems first, like in northern Italy, for example. Right, and so it was obvious to me that it was the traveling people that were bringing it around, and that for me also meant, like, I knew, okay, so I'm definitely going to stay home, and it was the same with Pat and Tony in the band, right? We decided, okay, so definitely no traveling, definitely no cruise, because they were still planning to do the cruise to the Edge at that time. And yeah, so that was the beginning. But like from the very beginning, I got home and I knew, okay, this is it, and I needed to do something else. So I started, actually started a crowdfunding campaign, because the money that I would have earned on the Japanese tour, that was my money for the first 4 months of the year. So so then I did a crowdfunding. I started teaching a lot. I started producing a lot of music. For other people, I started producing a lot of music of myself. And then in the summer, I started doing online events with Zoom, which I call Living the Dream.
Yeah.
And then later in the year, I started a podcast. So I try to keep like busy in a time. Well, it sounds, I've not really been busy in this time, right? It may look on the outside to people like I'm busy, but it's just I'm also very efficient in doing things in a short period of time. And what made this whole experience so much more difficult, but also more beautiful and amazing, is that I had my girlfriend, we had our first child in October 2019. So, so I was at home and I'm still at home, and I experience her 24/7 growing up, changing from, every 5 minutes you can see something new. It's beautiful. It's amazing. It's like, it's wonderful, literally. But as you, I don't know if you're a father, but if like it's very hard, because it's a hard job to have children, right? So
Yeah.
so for me, because it's the first child, so I had no idea what that's like to have a child and to have the pandemic. What happens is that at some point you don't even know anymore. Okay, am I stressed because I have to look after the baby, or am I stressed because everybody is strange around me, or I can't see friends, or like it was very confusing, and it continues to be a little bit confusing.
Yeah. Well, hopefully now with people, taking medicine and people getting healthy, things will improve,
Yeah.
and people will go on tour, like you do make a living by touring, right? And then me, I see, I live in the border with two states, with Washington, D.C. I live in Virginia, Washington, D.C. and Maryland. So every band come this way. So I on average, I see close to 30 shows a year. And of course, last 12 months, I have not seen anybody. Now it's start opening up. So it's September 1st, and all the venues will start opening. So I will be able to see a good music. But for me, I began listening to the music I was buying. I was buying so much music, so much vinyl, faster than I could consume. So the pandemic was in many ways great to me, because I developed the radios and I listened to my own music. I was buying stuff that I didn't have time to. And also, you stop. I was going, like many people, going so fast. And when the pandemic was in, why that is not important, that is not important. Like they say here in the United States, you stop down and slow down and try to smell the roses, and see what is important in life,
Yeah, to an extent, I benefited from that, because first of all, like most of my friends and fans are in the US, actually. So a lot of the people that are started to come to me for lessons or for some kind of interaction with me, let's say, they finally had time to do something.
Yeah.
And there were a lot of people there that I wouldn't really expect that they were serious about doing things, but then it turns out they were actually very serious. All they needed was the time. And so I think the pandemic in some respect was very good for quite a few people. And like for us, the difficulty that started in December, like where in December, was that they closed the daycare places for children here. So, and since both my girlfriend and I, we sort of like, we have to work in order to earn money to
Sure.
pay for, and so that what happened was that basically I started caring for my daughter for half the day. So from the morning till 3 or 4 in the afternoon. And then I try to have some work, which sometimes goes through into the night. And so what happened was that the last 7 months, they were almost like, all the days were the same, right? Like when the baby is at home, like all the days are the same. Now, and the weekend is the same as the week, and I have to say it was pretty hard. And it was only last week that we were able to take her back to the daycare place.
Yeah,
that we were allowed to take her back there, and so now I have to get used to having time in the mornings.
That's right. Now you have nothing to do in the morning, so you need to keep yourself busy, and put the music. So let's go back to the beginning. Were you born like in a musical family, Markus? When did you start taking piano lesson, guitar lesson? When that started?
Yeah. So my family is not particularly musical, but my mother was listening to the radio a lot in the 70s. I was born in 72.
Yeah, gotcha.
So the music that nowadays we call classic rock, I was very familiar with as a child, and we had a vinyl player, and I listened to the Beatles, and you know, very early on. I remember as a child, I you know, used my thumb as a microphone, and I was singing "Hey Jude." You know,
Know what you mean?
I still remember that. And then for me, it was maybe songs like, really like one of the first songs that I remember very well was Hotel California.
Yeah.
Because it has this feature of this cycling chord sequence, which I love. I still love this kind of compositional device of this, you know, this cycling stuff. And yeah, and then like, but my father didn't really listen to much music. And my father was a truck driver, actually, so he was away a lot. And so it was like in '82 that my mother and my uncle, they took me to a Mike Oldfield concert, and that was the beginning really of my love or where I knew that I wanted to explore music, let's say. But even before that, I had like the classic, how do you call it, like the classic children's education that you have in Germany. And then I used to try to play the recorder, and I had classes playing mandolin. So all that happened before I was 10 years old. And then at 10, after the concert, I think I asked my parents I wanted to have a keyboard instrument, and they bought me like a small Yamaha, small keys, and that's when I kind of like fell in love with harmony and playing chords and, you know, progressions, and it was nice. And that was really the beginning. And then I had a friend, an Indian friend, like from India, and he had a classical guitar, so I played on his classical guitar. And I had my, like, it's a little bit crazy, but then I had piano lessons when I was 13, and when I was 15, I had my first classical guitar lesson. And then only 3 years later, when I was 18, I went to a Robert Fripp guitarcraft course.
My God, man.
Yeah. So a lot of things like happened in the first 18 to 20 years of my life. But, and this is important to me still, like when I look back, in the first 20 years of my life, I did not understand, or I did not understand that something like practicing or learning exists. In school, for some reason, like the school I went to was supposedly a good school, but the class I was in, the people I was in the classroom with, we were sort of like the workers' children. So we didn't really have the best teachers. You know, in the other classrooms were like doctors, children of doctors and lawyers and stuff like that. So, which I you know, back then I didn't understand that. I didn't really know. But so in school, like there was nobody who ever really taught me something. Like nobody who ever really asked me or said, Markus, like be motivated to try to learn. So like it was really 20 years of my life where I was simply just going on what I would call my talent, right? So anything I could understand without having a teacher, actually. And then Robert Fripp, when I was 18, he was the first time I actually met somebody who was a great teacher. And he then had a really immense impact on my life. And there on that guitarcraft course, I asked Robert about the Chapman stick, which I still play that kind of instrument, you know. And so it was a really, really important event in my life.
Before you met Robert, you know what who Kim Crimson was? I mean, you were listening to some of the music, right? So
yeah, but just a few months before. So I remember that my piano teacher, when I was 13 or 14, he mentioned King Crimson to me, and he actually made me a mixtape which had only 2 songs on it, but there was no King Crimson on it. There was, on one side was Heart of the Sunrise from the what's it called, live songs, and what is it called, the Yes album, live. The four records in one sleeve. What was, you know which one I mean? Yeah. Yes songs. Yeah. So that version, and on the other side of the tape was David Thorne, Cloud About Mercury, the first piece of that record. And so that was my introduction to sort of progressive music. And in that context, my teacher also mentioned mentioned King Crimson. And so then a few years later, I was in a record store in my hometown, and I saw they had just put out like I think it was a 4 CD box, which was the 20th anniversary of EG records. So it was, I think it was Court of the Crimson King, Larks, Tanks and Aspic, and Discipline, plus the EG sampler in one box. And then what they did, because they, for some reason, I think that the box sets didn't sell, so they took the CDs out of the box, and you could buy them individually. And this may be a funny story for you. I actually bought In the Court of the Crimson King, and I took it home. I didn't like it, and I actually managed to return it.
Really?
Yes.
You cannot do that anymore.
No, you could. It was, I don't know how I managed. I maybe invented some story. I don't know. I can't remember. But then a few weeks later, I bought the Discipline album, and that I liked a lot. And I heard the few notes of the Discipline album, and I knew, okay, so this is my family. This is sort of the music I have been looking for in my life. And so then just a few weeks later, I guess I saw an announcement for Robert Fripp and the League of Crafty Guitarists concert, which was in Bielefeld, Germany. And I asked actually the sister of a friend if she could drive me to the concert. And I think they drove me there. And at the end of the concert, there were like flyers on the tables for the course with Robert. So it was everything, like it was everything happened like in a very short time. And I didn't really know King Crimson that much. And I also didn't know Robert Fripp that much. So which was interesting. First of all, I was very young, but then also when I went to the course to meet Robert, which was in that summer. I think the concert was in April and the course was in June or so. So what happened that like everybody was so, I don't know how to put it, but Robert is like that guru, even like in that situation with all the students, all the people that love his music, right? But for me, I was too young to understand. So for me, it was a little bit, I don't know, it was more like more friendly for me with him.
I got you. Are you still in touch with Robert Fripp, and he remember you or?
Yeah, well, I don't know if he remembers me, but I think he knows very well what I'm doing because I'm working with Pat and Tony, you know. So yeah. I think he's no, we have, you know, like it's one of the things that is kind of like my character is I'm very humble in a way with friendships, right? So especially with Robert as a teacher. Because what he gave me, I took it very seriously and I really worked hard. So when he gave me a lesson, I would only consider to go back when I really thought I would have mastered it. Yeah. And it really, in some cases, and this is not a joke, it's not a joke. It's 14 years, 20 years where I say, okay, now I've gotten there. Now I've arrived there. At this point, what Robert asked me 20 years ago, now I have finally gotten there. But then what is interesting, because the experience when you are a practicing musician, right? The experience of actually cracking a nut, like cracking an exercise, mastering an exercise. Mastering is not a good word, but what happens is that you get more answers, but the answers create questions, and the questions then create exercises. So in a way, if you have a good teacher or a good instructor, sometimes it's enough just to push the first domino and everything unfolds automatically. And that was the case for me with Robert's teaching. And I'm immensely grateful. And there, you know, like he did, you know, the digital soundscaping a lot. He started doing that in the 90s, early 90s. And I was a big fan of that. And I started kind of like, trying to do the same, but then trying to find a different way to use it. And like it was just hugely influential on me, and I'm extremely grateful. And I've met him over the years. I've met him a few times. But the last time I really met him is I can't remember now, but it's been a long time.
Yeah.
Over 10 years, I think.
Yeah, you gotta. Will be, I would love, obviously, I would love to interview him, but I know it's difficult to get a hold of him. He doesn't do interviews and stuff like that. It needs to be something very special for him to say, okay, yeah, I will do it.
Yeah, I don't know, but I think even if it's something very special, he doesn't want to do it. I don't know. I don't think anybody should take it serious personally. It's not a personal thing that he doesn't want to talk to you, or
Anybody else.
It's yeah, he just doesn't want to do it. And yeah, it's like it's funny because I think if you are an artist who is sort of like connected very strongly with the creative energy, let's say, right? It also can make you, I believe, like very sensitive to stupid questions, for example, right? Like, and that some artists, they go crazy if you ask them why, or like. Well, again, like if you are like great interviewers or even like great fans would probably great partners to discuss things with Peter Gabriel or whatever, but it just, I don't know. I can see that for me, the interaction with the people that I meet on the road, I really miss it. So for me, the fact that I can talk with you and that somebody else can watch it and they can reconnect with me, yeah. I think that's wonderful, and that's why also I'm very open for people to write me. And but this is the interesting thing. It rarely happens. Like I very rarely get messages from new people. Like the people that usually write me, I know them for a long time already.
I got you. Yeah, I interviewed Robert Rich a couple of weeks ago, and I always ask at the end, who you think we recommend, and say Jan Body. I interviewed Jan Body, I don't know, about 6 months ago, and then yourself. And from King Crimson, I interview, what's his last name? Jaco, I forgot his last name.
ProjeKct.
Yeah, it's a difficult name to pronounce. Yeah, he's a very nice guy too. And of course, I try to kind of, in a nice way, to see he can put me in touch with Robert. And he says it's very difficult. Robert doesn't do interview.
Yes, yeah.
And but it is what it is. But I would love to, But I understand. Right? You kind of, that's their life and their profession, and you don't want to invade their privacy, right? Plus, the people are very famous. I don't know. Like, you gotta respect when they say no, it's not. And but what if you go back early in your life when you began playing, what equipment were you using with when you're on the early recording? Just a simple guitar and
I started recording stuff there are like several points in my life where when I was maybe around 16, I had a Tascam 4-track recorder, and I did experimental electronic ambient recordings. I had a Yamaha synthesizer, and I recorded like 4 tracks of stuff, also with like reversing the tape and like the usual stuff you can do with that kind of thing. So like one of my first recordings was an ambient piece that I remember, but then, like I said, I started very late. I started when I was 20. I got my first Chapman stick, and that was the moment when I realized, okay, Markus, now you need to finally kind of like be realistic, and you need to practice. You need to learn how to learn, because before that I had no idea how to learn. Like I said, everything was, I could just do it. I was talented enough to speak languages, to do mathematics and physics, and I could just do it somehow. But then with the instrument, I got it, and I tried to play, and I realized, oh, this is very difficult. So I need to dedicate my life. And so I had the Chapman stick, which was my first instrument that I really considered to be something that I was connected to, and So I had just some multi-effects boxes at the beginning, and just maybe one distortion pedal, something like that, and also like a really short delay, which was like 2.3 seconds or something. And with that, I obviously, when you know Fripp, you know, like I started trying to do like the Frippatronics kind of style of stuff. So that was sort of like the beginning. And but it was not so much about the equipment, it was about the opportunities to play music that really had the big influence. And so the very first thing I did in Bielefeld, where I started studying psychology when I was 20, was a free improvising orchestra. And there were meetings in the university every Wednesday night. With a very, very nice, back then already quite old, like he was in his 60s, Gerd Lisken. And that was like the most amazing experience. Like he was like one from the real generation of free improvising, free jazz kind of people from the 60s. And he taught me so much. And for me, if you would ask me, Markus, which genre do you actually play? Really, like I come from that really free gestural use of the instrument, also like making all noises, knocking and like like anything you could do with the instrument. So that was sort of like, if you're asking about the gear, right? Like in a way, that was the most important part. And then from there, it went through. Obviously, I started doing the Fripp style of soundscaping with 2 digital delay loops, and then I started getting more into sort of like more structured improvisation, so playing with scales and stuff. Even though I have I am sort of like educated as a composer as well. You know, I had in high school, there was a teacher who was also very good, actually, who really helped me become a good composer. And so then at some point in the mid-90s, like these things came together. So I started becoming a better player and a better composer, and then these things came together. And for me, it was important to bring the composition into the improvisational act. So for me, when I played a concert, every piece was improvised. Maybe within a sound, like I had, like say I had one specific sound for the first piece, specific sound for the second piece. And so I prepared a little bit, but within the parameters of what I prepared, I was improvising. And so the gear, so the delay loops and the multi-effects pedal boards that gave me the sounds, they were kind of like very important for the compositional process.
And nowadays it's the opposite, right? We with the advancement of the evolution of musical technology, people having a fast computer at home, and you can do like your own studio at home, and it's that affecting. Now you have more technology, right? Before you were old school. Having more technology, it has affected your creative process. Do you think different now that you can?
No,
computer redo things many times.
Well, you know, it's. I think I was lucky because I was in the right generation. So for me, it was a continuous learning process, and for me, it was obvious. It was good to start with recording on tape, and then also my very first band we recorded on tape, and then I had a Sony DAT machine, which was my first professional recording device. And I did 4 tapes before I put out my first CD. And these 4 tapes, I recorded them on DAT, and then went to the copy place where they made like 100 copies or whatever, I can't remember. And and then I remember when I bought like maybe my second PC or so, because like before the PC, I had an Atari ST, which was a great computer. Then the PC was sort of like a wonky thing. But then with Windows, there was Cubase. I think it was Cubase, which was the first DAW I had on the computer. And at that point, it really didn't really work well in, I don't know, 96 or whenever it was. But then I could already see, okay, like I will have to get into this. And there were like maybe 5 years or so that I was still working with a DAT machine, recording stereo, like my band Centrozoon, which is with my friend Bernhard. We met once per week, and we recorded everything we ever played, right, in our rehearsals, and it was on that machine, and that was it was actually very good quality, you know. So, and the recordings are very usable even nowadays. And then it was, I think, in 2000 or 2001, it was with the program called Ableton Live, which is kind of like a new, maybe it was 2002 or 3, I can't even remember now, but almost 20 years ago. That was when I started getting into the modern production techniques, and I have grown with it ever since. And I, you know, like, these tools have become a part of my sound, a part of my approach. But for me, like, the old way of doing things is still, like, I would still, when I record an album, even with the laptop, I record it to stereo.
Yeah.
But because I have everything, like, I have many channels in you know, and I play live and I can mix live, but I don't record multi-tracks. I record stereo most of the time.
Yeah.
It's it's for me. There's something beautiful about capturing the performance and to commit, like, to make sure that the performance itself gets captured. And if you record to multi-track, it's very difficult to be exactly sure that you're getting the same mix that you had live. So that's why I really love to record the stereo sum of the output of the DAW.
I got you. I understood. And so at the time, you know, you finished what they call in German the gymnasium, and you went to university. You knew at the time, early in your life, when you were 20, that you didn't want to get a job or formal education. You wanted to be a musician, and you needed to talk to your parents and say, I want to give this a try, and music is important to me, or whatever. I want to give a.
Yeah, it was good because both my music teacher in high school and Robert Fripp, they both said to me, Markus, don't go to a conservatory, you know, don't study music. They both said that to me, and I took that to heart. I think they were very right in with their recommendation. And I've said this many times before to other people, but like, Robert really said to me, Markus, if you are a professional musician, you are going to do it anyway. So you might as well learn something else and then make your music. And he was absolutely right. So I studied psychology. So I'm a psychologist, and it was good for me. It was because I was so happy making music, right? I was practicing a lot. I was making a lot of music when I was studying. When I was studying at university. And so I was so happy with doing something that I wanted to do that the studies of psychology were easy for me, because it was very balanced.
Good balance, a good balance.
Yeah. So I got really lucky, and I had very good friends and a good partner, a good girl that I was living with, and we kind of supported each other. We did all the tests together, the psychological, the tests that we had to do to get our degrees, and so it was a good time, and very intense.
Do you remember your first paycheck, the first time you got paid to play in a coffee or in a small theater, or the first gig?
Yeah, the first check, and I think I must have it somewhere. I was part of a stick compilation. Stick players. It was called Tapestry Volume 1. That was the stick compilation, and I got, really, for that I did eventually get a check for, I don't know, for $1 something. Yeah. An actual American check. It was the first time I saw a US American check, and so, but with live performances, it took a long time to get paid for live performances. Like maybe there was the occasional concert, because like I was only doing experimental music until 2011. I was only doing experimental music live. So, and as you can imagine, like with experimental music, you can be grateful that you can even play somewhere. And yeah, really the first money I really got for playing live was with Tony Levin and Pat Mastelotto as stickman. And we actually, it was a South American tour. We started in the north of Argentina, and then went also to Chile, and Yeah, and it was a really nice experience, and that was like, and then at the end of the tour, Tony sent me money, so it was wonderful.
Yeah, I got you. Yeah. Tony's a very. I have not have the chance to interview him. I'm try. I would like to interview him, but he's a very nice person. What I heard. Yeah, I
Very,
saw
very
him.
nice.
I saw him. Well, I have seen him with Kim Crimson in the past, but with Kim Crimson you cannot take picture. They don't like the stuff. And I saw him with playing with his brother in a band. Levy brother, whatever the brother. I don't know.
Yeah, Levin Brothers. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's a very nice person.
Yes, very, very nice. And for me, it was really. I'm still very grateful to be associated with him. Also to learn from him. He doesn't consider himself a teacher at all. So like what I do, I just spend time with him, and I just by being with him, just by playing with him, I'm learning, and it's been a wonderful experience. And it's the 10-year anniversary of my first shows with Tony.
It happened already, or it's going to be?
No, it was March. In March was the 10-year anniversary. Yeah.
Yeah, I got you. Wow. Are you guys still wanna do? Well, Tony is busy with with Peter Gabriel and King Crimson, and when he has with his brother, he as a musician, you do a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Are you guys planning to do like a reunion, like a trio, a tour?
Yeah, of course. We will see each other in August. I will go to New York.
Yeah.
And we do the summer camp together, which is with Adrian Ballou, Pat, Tony, and me, as like the main guys. And it's called Three of a Perfect Pair Camp. And yes, and then like Stickman is going to play again. Like we have like 2 nights. There's the Thursday night as a concert, and on the Friday night as a public concert in a Bassville Theater in Woodstock. And that's when we're going to play again. And then, oh, there you go. My light just went off.
The light went, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know why. It's plugged in. Let me just have a quick look. Sorry.
Sure.
I can turn the other lights on. No problem. Just give me a second.
Let me continue with the with the recording. And
so we're gonna have Stickman tours have been planned or like postponed since we stopped the touring last year, right? Which was beginning of March, and we had a few tours last year, and they all got postponed. So the tour, which was supposed to be in the US in April 2020, it's going to happen 2022. And in Europe, we are hoping to play in this October. Oh. So there's a 3-week tour planned in October, but as you know, nothing is really clear. We don't know if it's going to happen.
But are the venues are open right now in Germany or no? Little by little.
Yeah, and to be honest, I'm not quite sure what they are doing at the moment, but we had a big breakthrough here last week, Friday. So just a few days ago, the restaurants were allowed to open the outside areas. Yeah. And you don't have to have a test or anything. So now things have come back to normal. So if things continue at this rate and the numbers are not getting worse again, then I think there's a good chance that in the fall there's going to be the possibility to play a few shows.
Yeah, that would be great. Feel free to collaborate with the Touch Guitar Circle, with Trey, forming King Crimson, and with teaching and support our network for guitar players. Feel free to mention that. Yes, what is important to you, and so on so forth.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I never really wanted to be a performer. That was not my main interest. My main interest was composing, was creating new sound worlds, and so when I got the Chapman stick, and I already mentioned that I really wanted to learn to play it properly. That was sort of like the beginning of also what then became the Touch Guitar Circle, because back then there was nobody there who really had thought about the mechanics of playing that instrument. So I was one of the first to really start finding a systematic way to teach it. And it was already in, I think, 95, there was a seminar in Belgium where I was teaching. And then in 96, 97, I had a group of students in Spain, actually. And it was interesting. It was like the Spanish guys, they called it tapeadores. That was the and it was great. It was the beginning of this touch guitar circle thing, which the name touch guitar circle came, like I think it was 2005 or so already also 16 years now. And so I did I had these meetings at my home. Actually, I was living in Innsbruck, Austria at the time, and we had these regular meetings with 4 or 5 people. And we worked on systemizing the whole, all the exercises and stuff, And Trey actually I invited him to Austria in 2012, I think it was. I can't remember exactly what one, And it was great because I got my first instrument, my first stick from him. Then he played the war guitar, which I played for 10 years. And so he was I also met him in Seattle once in 98 or so, and he gave me some good insight into the playing also. And so when he basically came to Europe to first learn about my work. And it was great because he is such an open person and wonderful person that he sort of he immediately saw, okay, this is great. And because, the problem with when things are new, right? You have to have one person or a few people who are brave enough to say, okay, let's try like this. Because if nobody says that, then everybody's just going to try. This try, and so what I did and my group of friends did, we said, okay, no, we have this idea, let's try this idea, and let's get more people involved to test if it works, right? So that was the foundation, and then we got Trey in, and it was amazing. Everything came together, and so at the moment, for example, I'm running a touch guitar circle course, which runs for the whole year. It's 49 weeks.
Wow. This
49 weeks. It's currently
in the internet, right?
Yeah, it's in the internet right now. Yeah, but before, in the years before, I did 1 or 2 meetings per year, like one in Europe and one in the US. And yeah, Trey was sometimes part of that when he was available. But we did some. Trey lives in Seattle, and when we did the course in Seattle, he was part of it there.
And then, how many students do you have on a weekly basis, if you have one?
Yeah, it's difficult to give you an average, but there are around 80 people, I would say, that are working with me with the touch guitar on and off.
Yeah.
So, but then sometimes, like in the summer now, it's less, right? There's I mean, per week, when it's a good week, it can be, and it should actually be up to 15 hours, 15 lessons, right?
Yeah.
But currently it's less. It's about 8 or 9.
Gotcha. Still, it's very remarkable that people do that. So you've been a musician, a composer, a record producer, an instrument designer, teacher. Do you like to do a little bit of everything? I mean, or if you need to pick one, you prefer to be a recorder and a studio musician, go on the road all the time, or you're happy doing understanding the whole process, right?
No, I'm happy to do a little bit of everything. First of all, because I'm such a curious person, and I want to know about the totality of the process, right? And but then, if you think about it, just from a practical standpoint, if you are a musician who is not making commercial music, there's no other way than to do many things in parallel. Like there's, because and this is something that has become very tiring, especially in the pandemic for me. Like every single day, to fight for a new job, or to fight for somebody to book a lesson, and it has become really, really difficult for me to think that way, because also, like, I'm not 25 anymore. I'm also not 38. I'm 48, right? So
Yeah.
so I would wish that there is some sort of sign, let's say, that I kind of like learn to understand which part I should actually, or I can focus on, you know. So, but for me, the touring, I think it's not over. First of all, I started late. I started when I was 38. So I still have some years in me to do the touring if people want to see me play or hear me play. And I also find that, you know, for me as a musician, the touring and playing live in front of people is the most powerful way to become a better musician.
Yeah.
I mean, you can practice 12 hours at home, and it's not as good as playing half an hour in front of people.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
You get nervous still when you play live?
Not anymore. It was very interesting. Do you know Carlos Castaneda, the book?
Of course,
Book
yeah.
yeah. So when I was in my early 20s, I read the Carlos, you know, Don Juan, and
Don Juan, yeah.
yeah, and it was. Huh?
I don't know if the book is like a myth or really happened. I don't know. But
No,
I know that
nobody knows, but it's
yeah.
it's wonderful because it gives so much ideas and input,
Idea, right?
and yeah, and so what was I going to say? What were we talking about?
We're talking about touring.
Yeah. Okay, I remember now. So the first time that I kind of like became aware of the voices in my head, let's say, right, that there were the thoughts and like everything, was actually through the Castaneda books.
Yeah.
And because then so in the books, sort of like the way that's presented is like that you want to try to have, say, emptiness or silence in yourself rather than the voice talking all the time. And so when I was performing, like as a teenager, when I had a recital with the acoustic guitar or something, I was so nervous. I had stomach aches. I really had stomach aches from I was so nervous. So I joined a band called Europa String Choir, which actually was on DGM in the 90s on Robert's label, right? And we had our first tour in 96, I think. And so I had the first experience of in practice of being on the road, even if we only played, I don't remember, 8 shows or something, to kind of try to practice to not have the voices. And then there was this experience of recording the first album with Europa String Choir. And it was in that recording process, we rehearsed during the day, and then we recorded, you know, we rehearsed one piece during the day and recorded 3 takes at night. Okay. So, and so we did that for 10 songs. And I remember at the end of the process of these 10 days or 2 weeks or whatever it was, I suddenly realized that I don't have the voices in my head anymore when I was performing. It was amazing. It was an amazing experience. And it was from that moment that I can go on stage and I'm more relaxed on stage than I'm off stage. It's really interesting.
Oh, yeah. Wow. Yeah, I have talked to several, obviously, a lot of musicians, and still the majority of the people get nervous. I know they know the pieces, they know the theater, they know that the gig is at 7:30, they will open the curtain or whatever, but still, like butterfly 10 minutes after. Yeah. Like
yeah,
Tony
no,
Levin. Tony's mid-70s. He's been playing music for 50 years, and some people still get nervous, you know.
Yeah, you know, the thing is that with some, you know, like I would say that I'm not very talented as with my body. Yeah. You know, so with the physical execution of musical pieces, and connected with that obviously is the memory, right? Like to remember all the moves, let's say. I'm not very talented with that, so I need 100% of concentration to be able to do it. So, and in a way, that has become sort of maybe a sort of an advantage, because when I'm on stage, I'm 100% focused on the music. because I have to, you know, and yeah, and in a way that has helped me not to have the capacity to have thoughts like, okay, oh, I'm going to make a mistake, or I'm going to get nervous about, like, no, I try to keep so calm that when I get to the certain moment, like we play this piece level 5, the King Crimson piece, which maybe you know, right? And so we get to this point where it's like where Adrian and Robert do like this like, and I play that on my own, and it's pretty hard to play, and that's the moment where like there's a short pause before it, and I get to that point, I take a deep breath, and I'm totally like focused, and I just play it, you know, like, and for me it only works if during the whole show I'm 100% focused. And so now even if I have to make an announcement between songs, I try to be like super focused, and I can do it.
King Crimson music is very hard to learn and very difficult to play. I don't know how people, you know, do it. It's that.
Yeah, you know, I think it's the interesting thing about that is I don't even know if it's true that it's very hard to play, but it's very hard to play it correctly.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because with that music, there is that you have to have the right attitude. It's like if you don't understand, say, the emotions behind it, if you don't understand the power behind it, and you just play the notes, it sounds like nothing. Like in a way, it's a little bit like you really have to take the music seriously for the music to become alive. And
especially in King Crimson, there's a lot of coordination, right? As opposed to other. And the last time I saw them was, what, 2 years ago, with 3 drummers.
Yeah.
And the first drummer would play this little piece, the other guy in the middle would pick it up here, the other guy would pick it up there, and Tony with the bass, and Robert Fripp on the right hand side. And it's a lot of moving pieces, right? To play correctly.
Exactly.
You know, play correctly.
Yeah.
It's very different.
And that's the beauty of that kind of rock music, because like in the end it's still rock music, right? But it's like a chamber orchestra.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and that's also what the most of the compositions are like a chamber orchestra compositions. And
man, you have played with Tim Bowness, with Lee, with Jan Buddy, Robert Reed. Is any, looking back now in your life, you're still very young, is any musician that you wish the opportunity to play, if God came to you and say, okay, 3 wishes, any musician alive in the world, you can be a backup or tour it or opening act, who you like to play with or for? Or
yeah, you know, it's very difficult to answer this in an innocent way. I would love to give you an innocent answer, but it's almost impossible to say that. There was a time when I was thinking, okay, so which superstars, let's say, like which people that have like a big career would be cool to play with, right? And it was difficult. Like of course, like then you could say like Prince maybe, right? Or I can't remember like other names right now that I was thinking about. Like even Björk, you know, like but then this kind of getting to a position like that is you know, like and this is like another thing that may interest you. I think that the most difficult or the craziest thing in the world of getting to actually realize your vision as an artist is to find the right people. So you kind of like have to find the right way to communicate with people so that they want to be friends with you. And I see that a lot when people, great people, come to me after concerts and they want to introduce themselves as musicians.
Yeah.
Most of them, they're not doing it right. most of people do it in a way that doesn't really, it's like if people start offering themselves, and you know, this is like a general psychological thing, right? Like if somebody gets offered to you, you're less likely to say no, as if you see it and you say, I want it, right? So and so for me, I really think like I play with the greatest musicians in the world already. I like to be challenged, so I would like to find a situation where I can learn something new. But the thing is that at this point, I don't know what that would be. And I don't know who that artist could be. Actually, I was on tour with Devin Townsend also 2 years ago, which was amazing, with Mike Keneally and Morgan Ogren. And it was absolutely an amazing tour, and I learned a lot there. So I wouldn't mind continuing to play with Devin, for example, right? Not at all. I would be very happy. So then before we started recording, I told you that Mike Oldfield is my favorite artist. So like whenever I would get a chance to play with him or his music with people who know what his music is about, I would definitely do that. I would love to do that. Other than that, for me, it's really about growing as a player with the projects I'm doing, and that's really it. So I really don't have that sort of I have dreams about my own music, what I want to do. I have ideas. I have ideas. I have ideas and dreams about compositions I'm still gonna write. And I have already written a piece which originally was largely electronic, which then has been arranged for symphony orchestra. That was in 2013. Was the world premiere of that piece, Todmorden 513, which was a huge success. I actually wrote a string quartet, which I think came out very, very great. And I have a lot of ideas in me for a symphony orchestra pieces. And I hope that I can get to do that. So really, maybe that is the answer to the question. I want to work with the Berlin Philharmonic Orchestra. You know, something like that is more interesting to me than to say I would like to play with Peter Gabriel, for example. Obviously, if I would have a chance to do that, I would love to do it, but I'm not dreaming about that.
Well, you gotta do it, right? I mean, there are two people, right? Some people have ideas, project, and they're lazy, they don't do anything about it. Other people have the same idea and make it happen. You know,
yes, exactly.
You gotta, maybe in your example, right? So doing something for the Philharmonic in Berlin, where a lot of people can listen, and the people will be happy going and listen to that kind of music. It will give you a lot more satisfaction than perhaps Peter Gabriel say, well, you know, Tony Levin is sick for a week. Can you fill out 3 gigs and learn the music tonight? But you play tomorrow in London.
No problem. I could do that, and I would do that right away. Of course. But so, but for me, I think that like the path really, you know, so far and this is strange to say this, but so far in my life, all my dreams have come true.
Maybe Peter Gabriel will come true too. That's good.
Yes. But you know, I'm not expecting anything to happen quickly, and I think that is also like a lesson I learned in my life, that things just simply take longer than you think. So, but if you're patient and if you're vigilant and if you keep putting good stuff out into the world, then your dreams will eventually come true somehow, and sometimes in quite unexpected ways. Right? So, for example, when before I joined Stickman I was working with Pat Masalotto already for 5 years. We did a few albums together as Tuner. Tuner was our name, or is our name, and so it was like early in the year 2010 or 2009, or I said to Pat, I would really love to tour. I think I said I would love to tour more, but I wasn't really touring much at all. And he said to me, "Be careful what you wish for," is what he said to me.
Yeah.
And a year later, I started the big South American tour with Stickman, and we didn't stop for 10 years. So
then you got tired of touring.
No, I'm not tired of it. I'm really not. No, it's so wonderful. And since you're from South America, I think the people in South America are just so grateful for good music.
Absolutely, right.
And it's wonderful. It's really so wonderful. And because like like everybody will understand, like you're on stage, you're doing you're doing work, but it has a purpose,
Yeah.
And this is such a privilege. I really have to say, it's a privilege, and I'm so grateful that I in my lifetime have this opportunity to do something that gives joy for people.
Yeah, but also the other thing, remember that one of the reasons that I came to the United States is I wanted to listen to great bands. I was going crazy when I was 18 years old. Remember, 30 years ago, bands were not going to Latin America. Now everybody goes, right? So I will see albums from, I don't know, Genesis, Pink Floyd, Rolling Stone. I said, man, I wish I could see these people. The internet didn't exist. YouTube didn't exist. So
which year did you come to the US?
86.
86, yeah.
So I told my dad, I need to listen to music. This is important to me, And now looking back, I have seen over 1,000 shows. I have, I don't know, like 7,000 CDs and vinyl and stuff like that. My dreams have come true. I have seen most of the bands that I want to see, right? Now everybody goes to Latin America, right? Tony Levin, King Crimson, Pink Floyd, well, the Depeche Mode, most of the people. At the time, no, people were not going there. So I was going crazy. So when you guys began doing in touring in Latin America, yourself and with Tony and others, people were very grateful for the reason we're playing. People were not going to, Latin America.
Yes. I remember that the very first show we played was in San Miguel de Tucumán, I think. And I remember that they said that our concert was the first international band in 14 years.
My God, man.
It's what they said. I don't know if it's true, but they said the last international band that was there before us was Roxette in the 90s.
Yeah.
That's what they said. But that's crazy. I wasn't aware of that. And
people went crazy. We're very happy to be a band.
That was 1,000 people. It was my very first live rock show that I played, and we were 1,000 people. It was really special. Yeah.
Gotcha. I was looking at your some of the work in Bandcamp and Spotify and so forth. You're a very prolific in terms of studio output. You have so many albums out there, different style music with different people. And so here's a kind of psychological question. What's the motivation for Markus to keep on waking up every morning and doing great work and next week, whether it's 20 albums, whether it's 60 albums, when you are 80 years old, what's the motivation? Because some musicians, right, have 4 albums and they keep on touring the same thing and people get paid. So they get paid very good money, no recording new stuff, and benefit from the old hits. In your case, you keep on doing stuff.
I think the real answer is the artist in me. Like the artists who I can't help but actually create. Yeah. But there's also more to it, which, like you said, from the psychological point, it is the what I do is musical research. I do it for myself, but then I present the results of my research to the general public. That's really what it is. It's some sort of like research. And you know, the way that I work is that I don't work all the time on music, but I have like these phases where I'm very creative. So I have, say, like I'm in the studio for 2 days, I create 5 hours of music. Or maybe sometimes I'm like, when I was still single and I was at home in the winter, I took one night, and in one night I record 6 hours of music, and then I put it out as a trilogy of albums. Sometimes I did these things like for recently, like last year and this year, I put out Gratitude Volume 1 and Volume 2, which is also ambient music. That was recorded in 2012. Right, so I also have like these archives of like these moments when I get really creative, and the other way that I work is that I have friends. I have Ian Boddy, I have Robert Rich, like you were saying, for example, right? And we meet. You know, like when I'm on tour in California, I say, Robert, you know, I have a day off. Can we meet and play? And we meet and we play and we have an album. You know, so it's most of the music I do is created in real time.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's different than Peter Gabriel, right? Look, Peter Gabriel needs like 20 years to arrange and orchestrate his music, maybe, you know. But for me, is I do it in the moment. I create something like with my pedals and the laptop. I create the system, like I said, and then I start playing, and I record everything. And in the end, I always think, okay, so at the end, I'm just only going to take the very best pieces. Okay, so this is like how I start thinking. Then when I listen to them, or I not listen to them for a few months, and I listen back to them, and I realize, wow, everything is good, like, or not just good, it's great. So I put everything out. So that's how it usually goes for me.
Oh, that's beautiful, man. I was listening. I want to bring your attention to a couple of tracks. I listened to the album "Lift a Feather to the Flood."
To the Flood.
Yeah, and I think I like the track "We Shed the Remnants of Last Winter." That's a beautiful piece, man. How they like, probably you don't, you know, I don't know if you bring memories to how,
No, I remember.
you put that together, you know, but that's a beautiful piece, man.
Yeah, the whole record is incredible. I think it was very special in the sense that I was very, very ill when we recorded this. So it was on a tour with Stickman, also of California.
Yeah.
And this is a funny story. So before we actually had rehearsals in Seattle with the band, and we were in a hotel, and it was like 4:30 in the morning, and the fire alarm went off. So as you know, like in a big hotel, and it was like deafeningly loud sirens in the building. So just in my underpants, everybody ran outside, like no shoes. Everybody ran outside. We were standing on the side, and there was no fire. Okay, but still, we were outside in the cold. It was the summer. No, it was January. It was January, so it was very cold. We were outside, and so basically, I caught a bad cold that night. So and that was the beginning of the tour, and we went all the way down, up down to San Diego, I think, even, right? So on the way where we had a day off, I then spent some time with Robert, and I was so sick, but Robert had the grand piano. And so I think he only, well, I don't remember exactly, but he specifically used it on one solo record of his. And I said to him, Robert, I really love that solo record, the piano record, so much. And that, why don't we do something where you play only piano and I play everything else? And we did that. And it's like one of these records where they, like what you're hearing is what we played. It's that mood. It's the one take thing. Yeah. And thank you. It's a really, really special record.
Yeah. Another track from the same album, I think, is called "Glycerin" on West Tarmac. This is another beautiful piece too, man. I get emotional and stuff because what music does to me, it's hard to explain. Either you get it or you don't. It's great. I put my headphone and I dim on the light here in the room where I listen to music, and it's very, very good stuff. I'm like we say at the beginning, there is great music and there is terrible music, right? So whether you listen to rock and roll or Pat Benatar or Blondie or Coldplay, whatever, it's good stuff. And the track that I'm mentioning there, that is very good stuff, man. So very, very good.
Yeah. Thank you.
No problem. Another album that I really like is Color Division. And I think the composition that I picked from there was Crescent. Also is a magnificent piece too, man.
You've chosen like these ambient pieces, and I do think they are very powerful. You know, with this ambient music, there's a little bit of a misconception by big parts of the audience that, you know, like especially also rock audience, that I think there's a lot of skill and a lot of musicality necessary to create great ambient music, and to me it's you know, I like everything that's challenging, which is interesting. Like, you know, if I say to somebody, oh, I like everything that's challenging, and then they listen to some really slow ambient music, they don't understand how careful, you know, like you have to be to create something as beautiful as that. And so this is like another example for how I am as a person. You know, for me, it's about the effort to make something great, and it doesn't matter if it's slow, fast, loud, or soft, or whatever, you know.
Yeah, some people say, well, I like Brian Eno, right? And well, what's the big deal? He put a little keyboards and go to a pub and drinks beer and then come back to music stuff. It's not true. You know, some people say, well, in Tangerine Dream, right? They pre-recorded some stuff, they put keyboard, they modify, and they go to the restaurant and the music keep on playing, right? You know, as opposed to, you know, be the drummer there that you play live in King Crimson, right? It's hard work to do all the kind of music, to do great ambient music, to do great electronic music. It's a lot of effort to do it correctly, to do it right.
Yeah, but you know, I think I know what you're trying to say, but it doesn't even effort is not even the right word. You know, it can also be effortless. But then the question is like how do I get to the point of being effortless with it, right? And that has been sort of my interest. And so like I said, every new situation to make an album with Ian, for example, or with Robert, or like any other, like I have a new album coming out with Jan-Peter Schwalm, who did the Drawn from Life album with Brian Eno, which maybe you know. It's one of my favorite records, and I made a collaboration with them, which will be released in July. And it's you know, every single collaboration just is a new research project in a way. Like, how can I get new sounds out of my instrument? How can I create new emotions? How can we have like a different kind of depth? You know, and for me, it's I rarely try to repeat the same thing. Yeah.
Man, you have so much. You are a very talented guy. I mean, I'm touching the ambient pieces, but you have 10 other live for other kind of music, you know, with Steve with Tony and that kind of stuff. I'm quite sure, you know, we need to make time to do like a part 2 of this interview and a part 3 of the interview, you know, because it's getting dark. And but so I love your podcast as well. You know, I listened to the one that you did with Adrian Holmes, obviously, which is another great musician, and then with Tony Lane. So you're doing well, man. You're doing well in life. You know, that's important. You know, for me, all my radios are free, right? I don't charge anything. I keep on buying a lot of music because and if people can benefit from the stuff and without listening to commercial, whether you wake up at 3:00 in the morning in Berlin or you are in China or you are in Buenos Aires, Argentina, you can turn off the radio and listen to good music. You know, So, you know, you have another 5 minutes. It's getting dark there. I noticed that in the window that.
Yeah, let's do 5 minutes and then
Yeah, it's
5 minutes is okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you, so yeah, the question that you answered, if you miss touring and live music, you know, playing in front of the audience, is everybody say yes. It's playing live is very different than being in a studio and being rehearsed.
Yeah. And especially also the opportunity to meet people. You know, I wouldn't be happy just to go on stage and not meet people in the audience. I would feel lonely. For me, it's important that there is exchange, and for my personality, it was important to or for my, let's say, for my musical career, it was important that people got to know me personally and not just hear the music, because the music can be almost like a wall sometimes.
Yeah.
Because also the music does not reflect who I am as a person. The music is like its own being. You know, it's the music is not me, and I'm not the music. And so that's why the touring or playing live and then meeting the people has been a way for me to connect with friends. And that's why it's so important to me.
Some musicians are more open than others, right?
Yeah.
You know, you are open at the end, you take a couple pictures with people, you buy some CDs or you sell some CDs and you get a picture with somebody and you autograph that. Other musicians, they don't care. They don't want to do the human aspect of their tour. You know, they do a tour. They don't want to sign any autograph. They don't care if they sell stuff or not. They go into the limo and they go back to the hotel to get your flight for the next city and so on and so forth, right? So
Yeah,
some people are more approachable than others. So you're your case, that's different.
Yeah, I think it's it's about the level of success, because or even if it's imaginary success. And so, yeah, it's true. But some people really, and I think it's all the fault of the way that the music business used to be. You know, like the division, like the artists and audience, they should never meet, really. That was the tool of control that the record companies had about making money, because the audience would project so many things onto the artist. So if they would get too close, the projections would change. They wouldn't be the same anymore. And that's why some of the musicians who have experienced that life, they can't really go back to the human, as you call it, the human way of doing things.
Yeah. Gotcha. You prefer Sigmund Freud versus Carl Gustav Jung in psychological terms?
I'm not a fan of either.
Yeah.
I think they have well, it's probably, to be quite honest, I would more be a Jungian guy, right? More than Freud. But no, I think what they started something which was very important, but the worldview that it was based on is very old-fashioned, and kind of led to people to focus on let's say on the past, and also on inner processes that are not very not the best medicine that you could get, psychological medicine, you know. And again, this is not a criticism. I think it's all very important, and was also like of the time, right? But I think that the more recent movements in psychology are actually more realistic and more efficient also in helping. You know, I think that's, for me, it's not an option to have to go to psychotherapy for 15 years. Right. So ideally you would, and you know, this is also, I think that human beings, like from generation to generation, we change a lot. So even, as you know, your parents, my parents, they're very, very different, right? Very different people. And I think that as the human species develops, we have more access to a psychological toolbox, right? So where, like, for example, in my grandfather's generation, it would be, I'm just saying this, it was very, very hard to change your opinion in your lifetime. Like you kind of, like, your father told you, you have to, you're a Democrat, right? And you stay a Democrat for the whole of your life. You never have a choice to kind of like go back, like everything that's given to you as a child. So, and nowadays, I think it's already very different. You have a chance in your lifetime to make up your own mind, to actually also get over, say, some phobias, you know, like in the old days, you know, like it was very hard for people to even get over something like a simple phobia in their lifetime, because the tools were sort of hidden. I think the tools, they are always there, and they were like, it's old knowledge. Like, you know, we human beings, we have so much knowledge, but it somehow got, like, I think that it's the reason was the industrialization, that a lot of the knowledge got lost. And so now we're rediscovering it, like, and we have more and more of these toolboxes to sort of like work with our inner child, to learn to care for ourselves, right?
Yeah.
And so so I don't really think in the terms of Jung or Freud at all anymore these days. Only if somebody asks me about them.
I know more. It's not that I don't like Sigmund Freud. I have learned more and read more about Carl Gustav Jung. So I'm more of a Jungian than a Freudian. Different people both did a lot of great work. And at the time, you know, in 1920 and so forth, it was, you know, psychology was doing baby step. Nowadays, it's very difficult. So,
but it's very groundbreaking work.
Yeah.
Though. This is kind of like what is important, right? To realize, like, just even to, and this is still difficult for people to nowadays to accept that the human being actually has magical thinking. Like, magical thinking is something that gets criticized a lot, or that you know, or even like religion or something, right? Let's switch, you know. But it's human, you know. It is part of what the human being is, to want to believe in something, or to, you know. And so just and that's sort of like why I think Freud in particular was sort of like part of that, because he kind of embraced that magical idea somehow, right? And yeah, I mean, this would be a longer conversation, but
we need to do part two.
Yes.
And then, so the last question: where our listeners can, you know, can buy your music? Feel free to mention your Bandcamp or
yes,
website.
Yeah. So if you want to support me, go to Bandcamp and buy music there.
Yeah.
There are a lot of things I'm offering for free. Also, the podcast can be downloaded for free, but you can donate something if you want. So that's Markus Reuter .bandcamp.com or Markus Reuter podcast.bandcamp.com, or my website markusreuter.com. And I have a YouTube channel where you can watch videos and you can recommend them to other people. And you can also write me a message if you want to have a lesson with me or talk with me or whatever.
Yeah.
And so there's all sorts of ways. And you know, I keep saying this to people. Like, if you ever have the feeling that you want to talk to me, don't wait. Don't wait. Send me a message right now. Don't wait. Because I've made that mistake myself in my life. Like I said, right, with David Bedford. Like, if you want to talk to somebody, do it. Don't wait till they're dead.
Gotcha.
And I'm hoping to live for another few years, but you never know.
Same here. Well, thank you, Markus. It was very nice.
Thank you, Claudio.
You know, I will send you the link for the interview for your social media, and then we need to do a follow-up, do a part 2 and a part 3. And if you one day you want to do like a podcast together or an interview together, where, you know, we bring a musician and I ask some questions, you ask some questions, would be great. Do some collaboration.
Let's do that.
I'm very serious.
Yes, yeah, let's do that.
Have a list of people. At the beginning, it was very hard because nobody knew the radio, nobody knew the kind of question. For me, I want to know the person, Yeah, I can read, Tony Levin biography and buy 20 records from whatever, Tangerine Dream. I have about 60 different CDs. But yeah, I can listen to music. I want to talk to the person, I wanted to talk to, and never, for example, Edgar. It would have been great for me to have a 5-minute conversation with Edgar Frost, and I waited too long. The internet didn't exist. I never got a hold of it. But for me, the way that I do interviews, I really want to know the person behind the keyboard, or behind the guitar.
It's the same. It's the same for me when I talk to people that I really. It really is a human interaction.
Absolutely.
It's and that's what it should be about. And like I said, especially going back to the first question, like the COVID pandemic, right? It was something that we've never experienced in our lifetime. And so it's good to do something new and to stay in touch. So Claudio, yes, so let's stay in touch.
Yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate it, man. Take it easy. Have a great night, man.
Ciao.
Bye.
Bye.